Yo, Steph Curry is out Friday night against Denver. The symptoms have gotten worse. The question is, will it be Jimmy Butler's big game? Or will Jimmy Butler even play? That's all ahead on today's show.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
What are they going to say now?
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's it? What's going on, everyone? Charlie Walter here. Welcome to the Locked On Warriors. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We come at you Monday through Friday on YouTube, wherever you get your audio podcast. Hit that subscribe, hit that like. Join the community that has grown to nearly 20,000 Golden State Warriors fans. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook, and right now, new customers can bet just $5 if your bet wins. How about $300 in bonus bets to use across the app? To get started, head to FanDuel.com. Again, I covered the team for 95.7 The Game in the past and CBS News Bay Area. Special guest on the program today, making his debut. He was my producer back at CBS Sports Bay Area. We spent many of nights together. We socially distanced sportscasts where I was down in the dungeon and he was upstairs on Battery Street. And today he joins us to talk Warriors. Good to have you on the program today, Jay Will. I guess the big news that just broke earlier on this Thursday, Steph Curry will not play against the Denver Nuggets in a game that obviously you want to win for a multitude of different reasons, but specifically you want to avoid getting back to 500. You want to stay above the 8 ball all season long and get a little separation from that Mendoza line. And it seems pretty hard to do that without Steph Curry. Now, Jimmy Butler is questionable. Draymond Green is probable. But let's start there. Without Steph Curry against the Denver Nuggets, let's say it is Butler, and you're running out Butler and the new toy, Will Richard, and Jonathan Kaminga, Moses Moody, Podziemski, Horford, et cetera, et cetera. How do you feel about their chances against a team like the Nuggets, who you took down in overtime a few weeks back, but they're still the Nuggets?
Well, I guess I'll start my debut on your show here with a real hot take, and I'll say that it is not ideal to not have Steph Curry when you're going to face the Joker and the Nuggets down in Denver. But, you know, I think there's a lot of positives to take away from the youth movement game in Sacramento last night. Wasn't the result that the Warriors wanted. That was a game that felt like got away from them. But, you know, it's games like that where you get the young guys some more minutes, build that confidence up a little bit, and then you add a Draymond Green and you add a Jimmy Butler back into the rotation, and that's what was really lacking last night. You could just tell down the stretch that they were just missing that star power. I texted you during the game. It felt like, you know, Al Horford had a cold shooting night, but he still felt like the adult in the room when those young Warriors were starting to get a little tight, and that was really the main difference in that Kings game. It's like they had the veteran stars, the Warriors didn't. And as much talent as these young guys have, you still need the closers. So fingers crossed, Butler will be back tomorrow. They're going to need him. I would say that if Butler isn't playing, well, just try to keep it close and hope you got a puncher's chance. But yeah, I mean, Draymond should be back, probable. It was kind of expected that he wouldn't play. If Steph and Butler weren't going to play Wednesday night in Sacramento, then you knew that next domino to fall was going to be Draymond sitting out. But yeah, if Jimmy Butler plays, I'd say that the Warriors will still be slight underdogs, but it's not, you know, I know this isn't the NFL, but any given Sunday, man.
I mean, speaking of the NFL, they'd probably get about a touchdown, I would think. Probably like 6.5. They'd be dogs to Denver without Steph Curry, even with Jimmy Butler. I would think maybe like 4.5, something along those lines. But the symptoms worsened. He's sick right now, and he can't go. It's as simple as that. In the game on Wednesday against Sacramento, there were some positives individually. Like Will Richard, that's a huge positive. And we're going to spend a lot of the show today on Will Richard and what it means for the future of Warriors basketball. But him scoring 30 points in his first ever start, that's no fluke. Like, this guy can play, can do a lot of different things at a pretty nothing that seems like he's elite, except for the fact that he seems like an elite basketball player. Like, he seems like he knows how to play the game. He cuts at the right times. His defensive rotations seem to be pretty good for someone his age. His on-ball defense, he gets blown by here and there. You would expect that from a rookie, and I don't know if that's ever going to be like his number one strength, but just overall team basketball, he has that feel. He gets it, man. You like that. But it was Kaminga and it was Will Richard who led the Warriors early. It was Moses Moody who kind of, along with Will Richard, brought the Warriors back late and gave them a chance. It was Will Richard who hit the three to put the Warriors up 1 with about 5 minutes to go. And then, the last few minutes of the game, there were just some issues, man. Turnovers were an issue all game. Fouling was an issue all game. They fouled 11 times in the third quarter. The Kings were, in the bonus with like 8 minutes to go in the quarter. They turned it over 8 times to Golden State. And then late, where you would think it's kind of Kaminga's moment. We always talk about how I don't talk about it. Kolsky on this program always talks about he's never had this moment. He had the moment, and I thought he struggled down the stretch. I think a lot of it probably has to do with the foul issues. That obviously takes away some of your tenacity and the way that you would normally play, especially when you're a downhill player. But I thought he really, really struggled in those final moments of the game, and that's just my take on it. What about yours?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to get to Kaminga, but we were starting with Will Richard, and even before the season started, you kind of saw on the social media pages of the Warriors, the behind the scenes practice tape that they'll show. Steve Kerr turned over to Jimmy Butler, and he's like, this guy knows how to play. And, it seems like he's just a really good culture fit. Seems like tremendous value, late second round pick. But you get a guy that's.
How does he go late second round? Because there's so much tape on the dude. Like, I get how Şengün falls to like 18 in Turkey or whatever. But how does a national champion that was arguably the best player on the floor in the national championship game, that has pretty good positional size and length, and moves pretty well and can shoot it at least decently? Like, I don't understand it truly.
Yeah, it's a great point, because, you and I are both college hoops guys. We love March Madness. We grew up filling out brackets, and, as over at CBS here, we do all the March Madness shows. We were watching this Florida Gators team all March into the national championship. He's got that championship pedigree. He's just a winner. But he's 22. I don't know off the top of my head. I think he's at least a 3-year college basketball player, if not more.
Oh,
but
he was all 4.
All 4. And that's the kind of guy that, the Warriors need to draft. They don't need some project. They don't need some raw guy that's going to be great in 3 or 4 years. They need a guy that can plug and play right now. And Will Richard is exactly that. If for the pickup basketball guys out there, he's the exact guy you want on your pickup team. He's not going to have to take every shot. He's not going to be high maintenance. He's not going to be barking at you if you miss a shot or you do a turnover, but
he's supposed to win.
He's a winner, and he just felt like he's at the right place at the right time when he needs to be. And it was good to see him get that kind of run last night, because I know that, early on in the season, early on in his career, that was the most minutes he had ever played. It was his first career start. And, I know Fitz said at halftime he was nervous going into the game for his first start, but he seemed cool as a cucumber. But to your point about how he fell so much, I mean, you watch that Florida team. I'm drawing a blank on some of the names right off the top of my head.
Walter Clayton, obviously a name.
Walter Clayton was the star. He was kind of your Steph Curry of that team. Will Richard was kind of the third or fourth option on that team. I mean, they had a tremendous backcourt, but they had what was his name? Condon, the big 7-foot guy. Mm-hmm. They had that rim runner who could just throw it down, who had some just sick dunks. He's kind of your Jonathan Kaminga of that Florida Gators team. And Will Richard was just Will Richard. And so he's just doing the exact same thing that he did for those Florida Gators. And you look back at his season last year, he wasn't their leading scorer. Any given night, he could be a guy that could go out there and score 7-8 points, but he's playing 35 minutes. But when needed, he can also score when called upon. So a lot to be excited about from a guy like Will Richard. And,
a ton, man.
I think that he's going to continue to find ways to get into the rotation here.
Coming up on the show, a deeper dive into who Will Richard has been his entire career and why I believe this is no fluke. This dude is here to stay. Also, Jonathan Kaminga's performance down the stretch, the alarming, the good. We're talking all that coming up on Locked On Warriors.
Destroy Jimmy and Domino's. I know Jimmy drinks great wine.
Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in, to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one, remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Their automated tools help with offer letters, onboarding materials, direct deposits. They save you hours every single week. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNBA and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNBA. One more time, that's Gusto, GUSTO.com/LockedOnNBA. There's 4 things that I'm looking at right now. Let's start with the fact that he began his career at Belmont. And that always strikes me as interesting because it's an indication that he was somewhat of a late bloomer. And with Will Richard, considering he's, 6'5", 195, probably didn't have some crazy growth spurt, you wouldn't think. And he seems like he's always had a natural ability to play the game. I think it goes to show that there's something about Will Richard that isn't necessarily sexy on paper and isn't necessarily sexy when you watch the tape because, again, he didn't get the big-time offers and played in the OVC his first couple of years and then transfers to Florida. NCAA champion that won 36 games last season. He was on the first team all-NCAA tournament team, meaning he picked it up when it mattered most. And he was also on the 2025 all-SEC tourney team. What's not to love? Shot 36% for his career in college from 3, shot 82% from the free throw line, averaged 12 and 4.5, and then only scored 30 once at the collegiate level. I always find it interesting when there are players that aren't really microwave scorers at the collegiate level and, they average 12 points or whatever, and then they come to the NBA, and by year 3, year 4, they're averaging like 25 a game. And you're like, where was this? And he may be one of those dudes, man. I know it's one game. It's a game where Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond wasn't there. 25 seems like a little bit of a stretch, but this is a starter in the NBA. I said that in the summer, man. I mean, my take in the summer was just that he was going to play meaningful minutes early for the Warriors, and I didn't think it was a crazy take, and I think a lot of Dub Nation kind of expected it. Like, between him and Tui, there was no doubt that he seemed like the safer pick. Took one summer league game to realize that, and again, these scouts do this full-time job, and they let one slip away because that wasn't a flash in the pan. Like, this guy can play.
Well, it's all about fit, right? The Warriors are an old team. They're a win-now team. When you've got Steph Curry, when you got Jimmy Butler, when you got Draymond Green, you don't need to necessarily throw in another big personality here. I mean, the guy seems pretty soft-spoken, but he seems like he gets it. After the game, I think he was asked, obviously he's being asked about his career high. He dropped 30 points. I think in the young season so far, he's just the second rookie to put up 30 points in a game. And his takeaway was, well, we didn't win. So what are we talking about here? And that's the kind of guy that's going to fit into a locker room with guys like Steph Curry and Draymond Green that already have 4 rings. They've dropped 30. I mean, Steph, that's just a Tuesday night for him, right? So if you're going to be locker mates with Steph, act like you've been there before. And I feel like young in this season, he gets it. I will say though, it's so young in the season. I don't expect him to be a starter down the stretch. When they've got the full rotation of guys, when they get their stars back, I think what you're looking for here is he a guy down the stretch that you can bring in for 8 to 10 minute stretches and share the floor with a Curry or share the floor with a Butler, and he isn't going to embarrass himself. He's not going to pee down his leg in the big moments. And so far, so good. But speaking of peeing down your leg in the big moments, I was disappointed with the way Kaminga finished that game last night because Kaminga, I was making the analogy to you earlier in this game. He's got all the talent. Everyone sees the talent. He's got all the athletic tools. He's a physical specimen. He's going to be a great player in the NBA.
Can I give you a quick little take that I think you'll agree with? It's
as long as you don't steal my take, yes.
It's all up here. It's all whether he is dialed in. And it's easier said than done, right? Like, the physical talent is immense. The question is always, how locked in is he? And it's not for a stretch, because every game he's locked in at points. It's, can he consistently be locked in through a 48-minute game when he is the guy? And the answer against Sacramento was no. He fell off for stretches. But again, I think you got to point to the foul trouble as some of that reason. It changes the way you play.
No, I mean, Kaminga helped them get into that game. He helped build the Warriors the lead in the first half, but he also lost them the game down the stretch. That final possession where the Warriors were down 3, 30 seconds to go. Kaminga had the mismatch. I forget who was guarding him. Was it Westbrook? Somebody he's completely overmatched size-wise. And veteran move, the guy just kind of falls to the baseline, gives Kaminga a wide open lane. And what does Kaminga do? He has a turnaround fadeaway jump shot instead of just taking a second, setting your feet, going straight up. Would have been an easy lay-in to make it a 1-point game with 30 seconds to go. He's still so young. Kaminga is what, 22, 23? He's the same age as Will Richard.
And I think he's streaky. I think he's a confident player to, like you saw in the first half when he starts knocking down mid-range and hitting threes. Like, he's the best player on the floor. My entire take post-game was going to be, can you believe that Sacramento could have gotten this guy if they just sweetened a deal with like Keon Ellis or potentially Keegan Murray or whatever? Like, Kaminga looks like the dude, like a long-term dude.
Yeah.
And then you just see flashes of not being as good. And I think a lot of it is just due to the confidence nature. And that's something that he's getting better at this young age. And I think he's much more confident as a facilitator. And I don't think he has any issues scoring the basketball. But I think late in the game, you saw that he had the three-pointer if he wanted to tie it up. Doesn't take the three. Okay, that's smart. But whatever that was going to the basket, it just it didn't strike me as a confident move of someone that's like, I'm going to get us a bucket in this moment.
And he had 2 or 3 of those. He had 2 or 3 of those in that fourth quarter. And I know he was playing with foul trouble. He turned the ball over, 6 times in that game. I mean, he accounted for a good majority. He had the most turnovers on the Warriors. And I'm not trying to turn this into a Kaminga bash session because I see the potential. He's going to be a great player one day. But here's the Warriors' problem, and it's been the problem ever since Kaminga's showing up to Golden State, is that he needs more of these games to grow. He's got to go through the growing pains. He needs more games where he's the guy that's getting the ball, that's controlling the offense, that's going to get 15, 20 shots in a game. And sometimes you're not going to win those games. But the Warriors don't have time to afford for him to have those growing pains because they're in win-now mode. They don't know how much longer they have Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green. When you've got those future Hall of Famers on your team, you don't have time to play babysitter and hope that one day he's going to turn into this great player. So, let's just hope that Kaminga's going to get more of these opportunities now because this isn't going to be the first time that trio is sitting out for, a road game against a team with a losing record. And Steve Kerr is going to have to pick and choose his spots where he can give Kaminga that kind of run. But I think I'm going to be really interested to see how Kaminga responds to a game like this because so far this season, it's been going pretty well. He hasn't really had a bad game per se.
That was his first bad half where it was just like, ugh,
Yeah.
First half he was awesome.
And if Butler's healthy, then the offense is going to flow through Butler on Friday, especially in a game against a playoff contender in an NBA Cup game like the Nuggets. But, it's going to tell me a lot if Kaminga comes back and bounces back with a 20-plus point performance on Friday or if he plays only 19 minutes and kind of disappears. And it could kind of set the tone for things to come for the rest of the season. But, I just going into that game last night, I feel like every Warriors fan knew this is going to be a Jonathan Kaminga game. put the team on his back, and passing grade in the first half, but when it counted,
it was Moody and Will Richard that you wanted the ball in their hands. And here's the thing. Will Richard, because you mentioned, like, I don't think he's going to be a starter towards the end of the season, and I agree with that. I'm just saying, like, long-term potential. When you have someone that has already shown the flashes that he's shown and goes for 30 in his first NBA start, and the way that he's doing it, the way that he looks and some of the improvements, the simple tweaks that he can make to be a really formidable player, it raises the ceiling of this team tremendously. I mean, him and then DeAnthony Melton, you're talking about two guys that could potentially replace players like, Gary Payton and Pat Spencer and dudes that just have limitations at this point. I mean, Pat's always had limitations to some degree, and Gary Payton, he's older and he's not the defender that he once was. And if he's not on the floor with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and people that get him open around the basket, then he's not nearly as valuable. And the same is said for Buddy Hield. So guys like Will Richard and DeAnthony Melton and some of these guys are huge, and it's going to help how the Warriors improve throughout the season, the ceiling that they have. But aside from that, I think Mike Dunleavy was given an extremely difficult hand to try and be competitive now. We're not going to blow this thing up. Steph Curry's going nowhere. Draymond Green's going nowhere. The big move that you can make to semi-blow it up is not to bring back Klay Thompson, and we can get into him in a minute. He's really struggling for Dallas. That looks like it was the right move, to say the least, moving on from Klay, as tough as it was in the moment. But what it does, bringing in someone like Will Richard with the 56th pick in the NBA draft, when you land on a pick that's 56th, like you go back to, a late-round draft pick like a Jokic or a Draymond Green, something along those lines. What it does is it requires no assets, essentially. Throwaway assets. Teams throw 3 second-rounders in a trade to bring back, like, Anthony Simons, whoever it may be. They're throwaway picks for the most part. And if you land on someone that can legit give you 30 on a given night and can average, let's just say, his college statistics throughout his career, 12-4, that's huge, because now you got him. You got Moses Moody on a team-friendly deal for a couple of years, and I'm talking 2 years down the road when Curry, Butler, Draymond are likely gone. Regardless of what happens with Kaminga and Podziemski, if you have Moody, you have Will Richard, and you have like 6 first-round draft picks throughout a couple of seasons, and also have $150 million of payroll, this doomsday that was coming, it may not be as bad and as long as we all thought. Like, at some point, there has to be, to a degree, there has to be a little bit of a rebuild, unless the Warriors strike gold on everything. But 56th pick, getting Will Richard, if he's as good as I think he can be, that's striking gold on one thing. And it's just one thing after another that the Warriors are going to have to strike gold on. The Jimmy Butler trade, now, is it long-term striking gold? Not necessarily, but in terms of trying to stay competitive right now while not altering the future, I mean, you gave away Andrew Wiggins and 1 first-round pick that turned into a player that has yet to play a game in the NBA for the Miami Heat. So not the worst thing in the world to try and win now and retain some of your assets. I mean, remember, if they went after Lauri Markkanen, it was going to require Kaminga, Podziemski, Moody, and like 3 first-round draft picks. So the Warriors have kept some capital, and they're in a pretty good position, I would say, to not go through hell when this thing's all said and done. But enough about the future.
We're talking about the future, and when you've got Wardell, Steph, and Curry on your team, what are we talking about, bro?
I'm just talking about Will Richard is a part of your future that you did not think was anything more. I mean, when you're drafting 56th, you're like, all right, maybe we get a Nico Mannion. Maybe we get a G League guy. At best, maybe we get Quentin Post, who's around the same pick. You don't think you're going to get a player that legit has potential to go for 20 on a given night and like earn the trust of a Hall of Fame coach 10 games into his career, when Kerr has shown the sometimes restraint of playing, whether it was Moody or Kaminga or whatever. Like, he's not given a lot of rookies run for the most part. And the fact that he's already earned himself a seat at the table and He's one of the go-to guys on the load management nights. I mean, that's huge for the Dubs, man. I mean, forget a loss to the Kings, forget the present for 2 seconds. Like, that is huge for the future to have someone like that on a rookie contract, assuming he is as good as I think he is. And when I say as good as I think he is, like, I think he's a legit NBA starter. Coming up, I want to get into something that Steph Curry said earlier in the year, how he thought that this was a team that was going to get off to a really fast start and why it's kind of felt like the opposite. That's ahead.
Who can stop Steph Curry?
Hopefully we'll never find out.
Today's episode is brought to you by America's #1 sportsbook, that is FanDuel. With the NBA being back, there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the association. Even if you missed the start of the game or if you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Forget that. We champs. Why are you starting with that question? We got 4 championships.
Nuggets game, I guess the biggest thing with Denver is who's going to guard Aaron Gordon and how are you going to put out that fire? He had 50 the last time you saw them. Jokic is a walking triple-double. Jamal Murray's off to a good start this season and can eviscerate you from the mid-range. The Warriors need Jimmy Butler. You don't have Jimmy Butler out there, I'd be stunned if they won that game. But going back to the Sacramento game, individually, you liked what you saw from Moody. You liked what you saw from Will Richard. Pajemski nearly had a triple-double. Kaminga had the half that we were saying. But again, like, you didn't win the game. So individually, it's great to point at one player at a time and say, that was nice, that was nice, that was nice. But it's Sacramento. They're not good. They were missing Sabonis. They were missing Zach LaVine. It's pretty evenly matched in terms of the talent on the floor, you would think. And it was just the way the Warriors didn't get it done. I mean, look, people point to Steve Kerr all the time on this program. And until the wheels really fall off, I still have my faith in the head coach of the Warriors. But there is something to be said about how inconsistently this team goes about quarter to quarter. I mean, I guess that's just life in the NBA. You look at the Thunder, they were up 22 on Portland and lost. So that's life in the NBA, but it does seem consistently almost every game the Warriors struggle to put away teams. And sometimes, you know, they're up 16 points in the second quarter, and next thing you know, they're down 7. And
well, they lost that game in the final minutes of the third quarter. You know, you were already
and the final minutes of the fourth because they regained the lead and had all the momentum with 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, but in the third quarter, they get the Kings into the bonus so early into that quarter. It was already going to be an uphill battle, and you still find a way to be down 2 with a minute and a half to go in the quarter. And it was just get to the fourth quarter. And what do? Well, Buddy Hield had one of the worst turnovers I've seen down the stretch and at the end of that third quarter. Somebody was jawing at. I think it was DeRozan. DeRozan jawed at him. He didn't get a tech or anything. He got the tech for arguing that one call with punch in the air. But they left the third quarter down 8 or 9 because they let the Kings go on a quick little 6-0, 7-0 run down the stretch there. And it's those types of moments. I would say, you know, there's no moral victories in the NBA. There was a lot of individual positive takeaways from last night, but a rough 17 minutes for Pat Spencer. I mean, minus 19 on the plus minus. What do you have? 2 turnovers. You know, he's not a guy that you can really rely on winning games with if you're going to have to play him for 17 minutes. And if he is on the floor, he's going to need the superstars alongside him to be more of a facilitator rather than an offensive creator. But, you know, I wouldn't get too caught up. That was a game that the Warriors were underdogs going into. Despite the Kings' injuries, they were still, 3.5-point underdogs going into that game. They weren't expected to win. When you don't have Steph, you don't have Jimmy, you don't have Draymond, you're not going to win a lot of games like that. So I would say there was more good than bad from last night. I still don't expect them to win without Steph, but I want to see them show fight, and then you got to go beat the brakes off the Pacers on Sunday, and let's see how we go from there.
The one thing that I don't want to say frightens me, but it definitely contradicts the way the Warriors players were talking. Curry brought it up many times, how it reminded him of 21-22, and that this team was going to get off to a hot start. They were meshing. It was go. And it felt that way early. I mean, Lakers, professional. Nuggets, gritty. Comeback win. And then Portland, kind of a reality check, but, Warriors get back in their winning ways. 4-1, Warriors are feeling great. And, man, Milwaukee just really sucked the juice out of everything. A fully intact roster. Giannis is gone. You don't win that game. Ryan Rollins rips out your heart. And then you back that up with a loss to the Pacers where you never felt like you were going to lose. You lose. And then to follow that up with a win, and then, back to losing to the Kings and now not having Curry against the Nuggets. It doesn't feel like, it feels like the opposite of what they said. Like we're going to be guns a-blazing. It almost feels like it's just management season. Like, hey, we just need to get through this first month of the year, get our legs under us, get healthy. D'Anthony's coming back. Seth Curry's joining the fold. We now know what we have in Will Richard. We'll be ready to go come playoff times. Let's not sink here. And that's, I think, the message that Steve Kerr really had in that game against Indiana. It was like, dudes, like, I get it. Portland's going to be tough. We're going to have games where we just don't have the legs under us. But Indiana, without all their players, essentially, minus Pascal Siakam, like, come on. And an 11-point lead late.
It's an inexcusable loss, but it's the Warriors' biggest battle, especially early on in the regular season, is going to be fighting that apathy. You've got future Hall of Famers on this team. You've got Draymond and Steph who have 4 rings. Are they really that pumped up to play a game in late October in Indiana?
Jay Will, good stuff, man. Let's have you on again sometime soon.
Would love to. Yeah, man. It's going to be a little bit of it's going to be a grind here these next couple weeks, man. 6 of the next 7 on the road. Let's see how excited they are to go to Orlando a couple Tuesdays from now. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You got Nuggets on the road on Friday.
There was a time when the
Warriors
sprinted marathons, man.
Well, they'll get their time when they get to the play. They just got to get to the playoffs healthy. You'd love to get a top 4 seed, so you've got at least home court advantage in that first series. But yeah, with this Warriors team, I don't think they care about home court. They just got to get to the playoffs. If this team is healthy, you don't want to see. Nobody wants to see this team in a 7-game series, but you still got to keep pace with the rest of the league. So split these games against the Nuggets and the Pacers. You're probably going to be underdogs against the Nuggets. You have to beat the Pacers at home. You have to beat the Pacers at home on Sunday, especially what they did last weekend. And then you got 6 on the road. Can they at least go 500 during that stretch? You got some tough games. That first one against the Thunder, I know the Warriors are going to get up for that one. But then a back-to-back against the Spurs. You got the Pellies. You got the Magic. You got the Heat. You got to win at least 3 of those 6. And then from there, they can start stacking up the wins.
Locked On Warriors. Appreciate it, everyone. Have a good one.